So let me get started. All right, everything is good. Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are starting a series on Nietzsche. And the way I have chosen to do it is I'm using the lessons from Tao Te Ching that we've been studying. What we found was that when we focus on a text which is relatively small, relatively concise, and very deep, and have a lot of interaction about it, something magical happens. And that is happening in Tao Te Ching. Okay, we do this on Tuesdays. So I want to see if we can repeat that for another thing. I'm actually doing two experiments. This is one of them. The second experiment is Jordan Peterson's series on Bible. We're doing the same thing over there. You know, Roger is presenting on the entire lecture of Jordan Peterson, but not focusing on the lecture itself, just identifying 4 or 5 key points and then doing a lot of discussion on each of the points. So we're going to try to do the same thing on Nietzsche. But what I want to do is I want to understand, so this is the first in the series, and we're going to be talking about the 3 metamorphoses. We're going to start by actually reading out. So I would like volunteers. We'll just go paragraph by paragraph. You can read from any translation that you have. So keep your translation open. We'll start shortly on that, and you're welcome to read a paragraph. Okay. If you would like to volunteer to read a paragraph, just go ahead and type ! And we will take turns reading the whole thing. So even those people who have not read it before, I want to create a context very quickly, very simply, and then everything is going to be about a conversation about the book, okay? But before we start, I want to ask everybody a very simple question. What interests you about Nietzsche? Especially if you have looked at Nietzsche, if you have read Nietzsche, whatever your impressions, try to be brief, about a minute or so. So go ahead. The first thing is go ahead and type ! If you would like to share about your interest in Nietzsche. For those who are new, we've got always 4 rules, which we have used in our meetups for the past 5 years that work beautifully. First rule is that you type ! or raise your hand in Zoom in order to speak. Rule number 2, keep on topic. Today we are talking about Nietzsche. And we're talking, so currently we're talking about Nietzsche, then we'll start talking about that particular essay, 3 metamorphoses. Number 3, be brief. There is incredible number of good people here, and you want to hear from them, not just hear yourself talk. I want you to express yourself, but do that briefly so that we create as much richness as possible. And finally, feel free to speak your mind. Speak authentically. Feel free to disagree with anybody on anything, but do so courteously. All right. So with that, it's going to be, so question on the table is what interests you about Nietzsche? Doesn't matter if you know a lot about him or little about him. Okay, that's the question. So we're going to start with Phil, Joe, Dave, and Tim. Phil.
Well, it's not addressing this issue directly because I'm interested for different reasons, but I was interested in the graphics that was posted on the meetup, and because the camel was much lower. I mean, it's only the eye level with the foot of the lion, but the lion was actually almost on the same level as the child. So I see them as like twin necessities that's way above the camel. But also, interestingly enough, the child is observing the butterfly. And that reminded me of the Chinese philosopher and poet that had a dream that he was a butterfly. And he woke up and wondered whether he was a man dreaming that he was a butterfly or a butterfly that dreaming that he was a man. So that was interesting. And it started that way in a mystery already. So the butterfly was actually higher than the child. Very,
Mhm.
very
Wonderful.
interesting graphic.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. That was my creation. That's
Oh,
I took images from various places in order to create that sequence in that positioning to kind of to intrigue people and to kind of talk about what the relationships are. You know, there is a progression and there is a relationship. So thank you very much. Really appreciate the compliment. Next up is going to be Joe, Dave, Tim, and Brian. Joe.
So the question we're answering is, what do we like about Nietzsche,
Yes.
and what it speaks to us?
Why are you interested in Nietzsche?
I mean, I think that there are a lot of reasons to be interested in Nietzsche. And I mean, just not only for the intellectual purposes, but mostly for the journey to understanding oneself. And I think specifically when we had gone over eternal recurrence initially, you know, you look back through your life and you're evaluating it. And then you're not evaluating it for necessarily the negative things or things that didn't go your way, but as a way of overcoming and becoming the best possible self you can be. So I think that to me is such a healthy exercise in and of itself. I also think he has a tremendous way of thinking, you know, essentially when he's talking about societal issues. You know, God is dead. It's going to create this vacuum. And so what is going to fulfill this vacuum? And, you know, we need to really think about that. And the journey to understanding our own personal meaning, but also meaning for society as well. So I think that this is really exciting. I still think that Tao is my favorite series, but I'm pretty excited about this as well.
Well, that's Joe. That's a good standard. I have to exceed that. We have to exceed that here. That's the goal. And then we have to do the same thing with Dow again.
Okay.
Wonderful. No, it's incredibly rich. Thank you. Next up is going to be Dave, Tim, Brian, and Dave next.
Yeah, thanks, Shrikant. I'm really looking forward to an interesting journey here. I heard that name Nietzsche for decades, but really became more familiar from Jordan Peterson, who relies on Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, two Russian authors, to a lot of his theories and his talks. And I think we read a little bit about him a few months ago, but reading the preface of his all his physical problems, although he's obviously a genius, but had stomach problems, vision problems, sleeping problems, and was writing 10 hours a day. It is just fascinating that someone so ill could produce something. Of course, upon reflection, we've been talking about Jordan Peterson being very seriously ill a few years ago when he produced his third book. So, and it's interesting, the next speech, he definitely talks about difficulty going to sleep. So it looks like it's going to be partially autobiographical. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Next up is going to be Brian, followed by Tim. Folks, if you would like to share what interests you about Nietzsche, go ahead and type ! or raise your hand in Zoom. Brian.
Well, I can't remember when I first heard of him, but it was must have been in some intriguing context. And then I read some of him and I found it very intriguing, and it spoke to me. I was a teenager. I don't think I'm unique in that regard. And then as I read more of him and more of other philosophy, I found out he's not only intriguing to me, but to many, many other people and many, many philosophers, and very influential, some would say foundational, regarding European philosophy since the days he wrote. So it has always been something I've come back to time and time again.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Next up is Tim, followed by Eric. Tim.
Okay. So Nietzsche, simply the deepest. He goes to the nth degree of depth and beyond. Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next up is Eric.
Hi, I'm quite new to Nietzsche, but I recently read a book, Hiking with Nietzsche on Becoming Who You Are by John Kaag, and that really got me interested in it. And one of the first things I remember seeing, it was like he said, talked about on becoming who one is. And then there's also a quote in the very first page or first chapter said, wander on the earth and know not as a traveler to a final destination, for this destination does not exist. I thought that was very profound right when I first read it. So it grabbed me and I wanted to read it, and it was a great book. And I just been willing, wanting to learn more. So I saw this and I jumped at it. So, but I'm pretty new. So but that's my story.
Oh,
Thank you.
wonderful. Welcome, Eric. Next up is Laura. Laura, what interests you about Nietzsche?
Well, I have to admit, when I first read him, I was very intimidated by Nietzsche, and I was put somewhat on edge and a little bit afraid. And so I think now that I'm a bit older, by many decades, I would like to be reintroduced to him through this. I mean, I think it'll be a safe way to go. And so that's why I'm here tonight, to start this process. That's why I'm interested in Nietzsche. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. All right. So let's get started. I think he's a very important philosopher, because he's one of the people who grapples with the modern world in a very deep way. Kind of things are changing dramatically in the world, and he's one of the few people who faces up to the fact that all the traditional institutions are no longer have the hold over the mind and over explanations, and he's dealing with that. So I think is a really key figure. So would love to talk about that. So I'm doing it deliberately. I'm kind of taking it in slow steps. Instead of looking at Nietzsche as a whole, we're going to be looking at specific essays. So the first essay that we are looking at is on the three metamorphoses. So I would like volunteers who would like to read parts of it. You can use any of the translations. I'm using the Walter Kaufman translation. So if you'd like to read, it would be wonderful. This is what we do in Tao Te Ching, to have multiple voices reading paragraph after paragraph. And so let's do that. So I'm going to get started. Let's start with Joe. Joe, go ahead.
Okay, so just read the first paragraph that I had?
Read about 2 paragraphs.
Okay, that's fine.
Folks,
Okay.
just a second. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So folks, go ahead, and before he finishes 2 paragraphs, go ahead and volunteer, so we can have multiple voices reading. Keep your books or your Kindles or whatever you use to going, and we will just keep on moving from paragraph to paragraph. Okay, so it's going to be Joe followed by Dave. Joe, go ahead.
Of 3 metamorphoses of the spirit, I tell you how the spirit becomes a camel, and the camel a lion, and the lion finally a child. There is much that is difficult for the spirit, the strong, reverent spirit that would bear much. But the difficult and the most difficult are what its strength demands.
Wonderful. Go ahead. One more.
Yeah, sure. What is difficult? Asked the spirit that would bear much, and kneels down like a camel wanting to be well loaded. What is most difficult? O heroes, asked the spirit that would bear much, that I may take it upon myself and exult in my strength. Is it not humbling oneself to wound one's haughtiness, letting one's folly shine to mock one's wisdom?
Wonderful. So Dave, if you could read further. Dave followed by Tim. Dave.
Certainly. Or so is it this, parting from our cause when it triumphs, climbing high mountains to tempt the tempter? Or is it this, feeding on the acorns and grass of knowledge, and for the sake of the truth, suffering hunger in one's soul? Or is it this, being sick and sending home the comforters and making friends with the death who never hear what you want? Or is it this, stepping into filthy waters when they are the waters of truth and not repulsing cold frogs and hot toads? Or is it this, loving those who despise us and offering a hand to the ghosts that would frighten us?
Thank you. Next up is Tim, followed by me, and then again, Joe and Dave. If anybody wants to jump in, you can go ahead and just type an exclamation mark. Tim, go ahead.
Okay. Just let me get the book here. So it's the paragraph after repulsing cold frogs and hot toads.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Or is it this, loving those who despise us and offering a hand to the ghost that would frighten us? All these most difficult things, the spirit that would bear much takes unto itself, like the camel that burden speeds into the desert. Thus the spirit speeds into its desert. In the loneliest desert, however, the second metamorphosis occurs. Here, the spirit becomes a man who would conquer his freedom and be master in his own desert. Here, he seeks out his last master. He wants to fight him, and his last goal for ultimate victory, he wants to fight with the great dragon.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Next up is going to be Eric, followed by Brian. Eric.
What is the great dragon which the spirit is no longer inclined to call Lord and God? Thou shalt. Is the great dragon called, but the spirit of the lion saith, I will. Thou shalt lieth in its path, sparkling with gold, a scale-covered beast, on every scale glittereth golden. Thou shalt. The values of 1,000 years glitter on those scales, and thus speaketh the mightiest of all dragons. All the values of things glitter on me. All values have already been created, and all created values do I represent. Verily, there shall be no I will anymore. Thus speaketh the dragon.
Wonderful. Next up is Brian.
My brothers, why is the lion needed in the spirit? Why does the beast of burden that renounces and is reverent not suffice? To create new values, even the lion is incapable of that, but to create itself freedom for new creation, that the might of the lion can do. To create freedom for itself and the sacred, no, even to duties, the lion is needed for that, my brothers.
Thank you. To assume the right to new values, that is the most terrifying assumption for a reverent spirit that would bear much. Verily, to him, it is praying and a matter of beast of prey. He once loved thou shalt as most sacred. Now he must find illusion and caprice, even in the most sacred, that freedom from his love may become his prey. The lion is needed for such prey. Next up, Joe.
But say, my brothers, what can the child do that even the lion could not do? What must the praying lion still become a child? The child is innocence and forgetting, a new beginning, a game, a self-propelled wheel, a first moment, a sacred yes. For the game of creation, my brothers, a sacred yes is needed. The spirit now wills his own will. He who had been lost to the world now conquers his own world. Of 3 metamorphoses of the spirit, I have told you how the spirit became a camel, and the camel a lion, and the lion finally a child. Thus spoke Zarathustra, and at that time he sojourneyed in the town that is called The Motley Cow.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe, and thank you everybody for reading. Now let us discuss these three. That's all we have to discuss. What's a camel? What's a lion? And what's a child? And what's the difference between them? Go ahead. We're going to start with just the camel. What is the stage of being a camel? Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you would like to talk about the camel stage. Phil.
The camel remind me so much of Animal Farm, the horse, who will believe in the thing he did to hold up the revolution, to sustain the revolution, but only at the end does the camel find out that he is actually a slave of the system, of the structure itself. So that was interesting, that the camel was, and I guess all domesticated animals is a symbol, and all, in fact, in many ways, most of human beings are that way. The slaves unto a structure and a system, and they don't know it. And so they are the burden that allows that being to be, but they are actually a servant.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. Next up is Brian, Dave, and Joe. Brian, what's a camel?
Is that me?
Yes.
Okay. I rung in kind of early because I think it's important to remember there is something before the camel. There are three metamorphoses, and if you start with camel, then all you have are two to the lion and the child. So what was going on before the camel? And you could talk about that, but I would guess that before the camel was somebody not moving between marketplaces, but somebody dwelling in a marketplace, more a member of the herd, caught up in daily life, daily routine. And that becomes unsatisfactory to that person. It's not quite clear why. But the camel, I think, is already a development or evolution beyond that. Call it a horse, beyond the horse, or an ass. I've heard it called an ass.
No, let's not make up stuff. Like let's talk about. I understand. I don't know. I'm not familiar with this particular part of Nietzsche. Does Nietzsche talk about a stage before camel?
Well, no, there has to be if there's three.
The spirit.
If there's three changes, there has to be a change to the camel.
Okay, good point. But we're talking about the nature of the camel. What we'll do is
All right, this then helps define the camel.
Go ahead.
Assume that somebody has become a camel. This is someone, I think, who is addressing the issues of value and values. So this is already an evolution, and the camel loads himself down with the traditions, the learning, the teaching regarding values.
Wonderful. Spirit. So I think Shalaka, you had something. Can you elaborate on that? Spirit before camel. Go ahead.
Where am I? I'm
you're
sorry.
Here.
Yes, here, I'll play my fire instead. I'm completely amazed, and I'm working through my rebirth card, which has this picture, and then I see you, and I've been following your group and reading things, even though I haven't really joined speaking. So blown away, really, because I remember stages in my life, I was looking through these cards at 20 and 30 and 40, and I'm in my 50s. And I completely, finally, humbly understand it. But from Nietzsche, well, as was said, it's just that much deeper. So I'm kind of doing it through Osho and Nietzsche. And I just am really happy to be here to some details.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shalaka.
Thank you.
Next up is Dave, Joe, and Eric. Dave.
Yeah, sure. Regarding the camel, obviously a beast of burden, but I note that he kneels to be loaded. So therefore I see humility. And also then it says, what I kind of surprised me, it says he speeds into the desert. So I really, the images I've seen the camel, they kind of plod in the desert. But the fact that he goes willingly into the desert, which to me is a very dangerous place, I think is worthy of comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Joe, followed by Eric. Joe.
Yeah, that was an interesting insight. The idea that the camel kneels and that it is an act of humility. But the camel is also, it's referred to as a hero as well. And it's somebody that's carrying the load, the burdens of others. So I see this as an incredibly, it's part of the process, but it's also a heroic act. And then there's, well, actually, that's pretty much where I'll leave it for now. That's my initial feeling about the spirit, the camel.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I would just add, I do agree with Phil that, in a way, it's part of a system, that it's already a belief, that it really doesn't necessarily have its own way of overcoming anything yet. It's just learning what is going on and doing it what it's supposed to do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Eric.
Well, I agree with the kneeling, and it's an act of humility, but I also found it as an act of, accepting load after load without defiance. The act of kneeling is without defiance, like accepting the load upon load. And it says, rejoice in my strength. But is it a blind strength? Is it a blind kneeling? That's, I kind of look at my own, growing up a very devout Catholic, and it's like I can see myself as the camel, just accepting the load upon load upon load and saying, oh, I'm doing good. But now that I get older, I'm starting to think like, what else is out there? So that's just my take on that. Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful. I mean, I do think, when I see these three beings, camel, lion, and the child. And camel is weighed down by traditions. It is the being that actually supports the traditions. It is carrying all the traditions on its back. It also kneels in front of traditions and lets the traditions be loaded on, and doesn't think of anything more than that. So it is the workhorse, if you will, of kind of carrying on traditions at tremendous burden to oneself. It also doesn't really care what it is carrying. It's just carrying things. You can put anything on it and it will just keep carrying it. So there is kind of just, almost like kind of passive acceptance of the current culture, current tradition, unquestioningly, and carrying it forward. Next up is going to be Madeline, followed by Phil. Madeline.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Time spent with customer service. I thought the dirty water of truth was very notable. It stood out as an image. I'm wondering what other people think of it. To me, it was kind of about being in the world and taking in the kind of the unfiltered world. It's not pure. The water represents the spirit. I'm assuming this is at least the case for Nietzsche. Whether or not it's the case in Zoroastrianism, I don't know. And that it's muddy, and the camel is going to drink it anyway because it's what's there. And the camel is thirsty. And also the camel is humble and not discriminating.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Madeline. Next up is Phil.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. There's this contrast a little bit with the Tao. The Tao Te Ching started from a kind of infinite level and brought it down. It seems like it's very interesting that he started in the opposite direction on a foundational level, beginning with society already, the structure of society. So the opposition of moving up and moving down is a very, very interesting contrast.
Beautiful, beautifully put. there is nature and there is culture.
Mhm.
Tao Te Ching starts with nature.
Mhm.
Camel is culture. And I don't want to put it too negatively, because it requires tremendous effort to carry on the traditions. It requires effort to keep things running. But it is all about that. So it's kind of like, it's like almost like it's capturing of culture, of kind of current culture, current traditions, regarded as traditions without questioning them, and kind of putting whatever effort is needed to keep them going. Next up is Joe.
Yeah, just to that point, it's only just doing things. It's not overcoming anything.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a really important point to call out, is that, because when we'll see later on, I don't want to get ahead of those,
Right.
but we'll see later on the importance of that, where it's just something that does what it's told, as opposed to actually looks at what it's doing and why it's doing it.
Exactly. And I mean, I think even the image of the camel kneeling down to
Mhm.
carry whatever load that is put on it, it's actually
Mhm.
not even seeing the load. It is just carrying the load. And it takes pride in carrying whatever it is that, that is put on it. Next up is Mushki.
Yeah, so what everyone said, but also an advantage of camels is that they're able to move in extreme extreme climate conditions over like horses and other animals that would carry humans. So I just wanted to bring out that advantage of camels.
Thank you. All right. So now let's go to lion. How is a lion different from a camel, and what is the nature of lion? Go ahead and type exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom if you'd like to speak. Phil.
Yeah, what's interesting about this is that the lion already sees the problem of civilization, that in a sense, the dragon, which got all these silver scales and all this sort of display of whatever it's supposed to be, it's not bedazzled by that. It just it wants to rebel because it knows it's an oppressive system that try to lure them to like, you shall do this. And he's not quite rebellious yet, because he says, I will do it. Is my initiative. The thing about my translation is that I want to find it. That was important. He speak. Okay. All value have already been created, said the dragon, and all created values do I represent. Truly, there shall be no I will anymore. Thus speaks the dragon. So I am in command, you are to obey. I like to particularly key out in my translation the word represent. I think the lion is saying something that I always say we have misread that word. It is not represent, as represent. It is my duty to represent the structure of representation that you have created. So therefore, I will into the conversation and let you know what my will is, because it is not a representation, not the original, it's only a representation. I will represent the representation, because it's already just an image. You shall live up to this image. And he says, no, I won't. I am going to now represent it, restructure it, recreate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Anybody else wants to speak? You can go ahead and type exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom. Joe.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not. I'll be reiterating some of what Phil said. But it's about the will and overcoming at this point. And I look at it as also bringing order to chaos to a certain degree. I know that may be a stretch, but in a way that by having a will, by just imposing its will and imposing order on what is essentially unknown, instead of being told what to do, you're actually embarking on the unknown and you're adding order to it. That's a unique way of looking at it, I understand, but that's what I felt when I read it as well. It also speaks to the strength of the will as well, and it really speaks to essentially overcoming the dragon and it's facing its dragons as well. That's the important part, is that it's not running from it or just accepting.
Thank you. Next up is Eric, followed by Dave. Eric.
One of the lines that struck me was, it says, to create new values that even the lion cannot yet accomplish, but to create itself freedom for new creating, that can the might of the lion do. And that, like, I think in contrast with the camel, who just takes it no matter what, the lion has the mindset to create that freedom initially, which then allows the change to be possible. Change cannot be possible if you don't have the will to have that freedom, or the fight to have the freedom to create it. So that line really struck me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, lion is summarized by a single word: no. Because that is the beginning. It's saying no to something. Whereas the camel is saying yes, but not as a strong yes that is a reaction to something that it thinks is good, but just kind of passive acceptance of yes. Lion starts by saying no to culture, to traditions. And that's, I think, the beginning of it. And next up is Dave.
Yeah, I'm starting to see some of this autobiographical stuff. The name of the dragon is Thou Shalt. And his father was a Lutheran minister. And I suspect he was brought up with a lot of thou shalts, very biblical. And I know in my recovery group, we say don't get should on. But I think he felt himself very much in a straitjacket. I think he's led a very straight arrow life growing up. And I think this is a sign of his wanting to get into a rebellion. Thank you.
Thank you. It does capture, I mean, it is rebellion, but I think it's much larger than autobiographical. Or this is like, let's read the paragraph where the lion is introduced. In the loneliest desert, however, the second metamorphosis occurs. Here, the spirit becomes a lion who would conquer his freedom and be master in his own desert. Here, he seeks out his last master. He wants to fight him and his last god. For ultimate victory, he wants to fight with the great dragon. So it is actually a rebellion against tradition. It is saying no to everything that has been taken for granted by the camel. So it starts with no and kind of beginning and pushing away of things that have been taken for granted. Laura. Laura, you need to unmute. What do you think is the lion? Laura, okay, we can't hear you. Go ahead.
Now you can. Now you can. Well, I mean, I think that, the lion really, becomes like the ruling spirit entity. I was curious about the role of the dragon. I mean, isn't that more like a mythological creature, and the lion something, that we recognize as a real creature? And so that in defying the mythological, there, is a transition from that into reality.
I don't think he's talking about that. I mean, he's using all of these are metaphors to talk about various things.
Okay.
Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with your interpretation a bit. Sukant, because like the lion did not say no because he believes that there is a reality. He is saying, I will, not I shall. I will do it, but you are a illusion that try to pretend that you are something bigger, something more infinite, and you are just trying to dazzle me with your scales to make me think that you are God, a higher order. So I will do it, but I must have myself to make a determination. Not, no, I won't obey anything. I just need to enter into the decision and make a decision for my own what should be, not what you think should be.
Wonderful. Excellent. Now, I don't disagree with you. I agree with you. The thing is that it's like the structure. I think you have to begin. See, even to kind of proceed on this, you have to be willing to look at something and be able to say no. The thing about the camel is that it doesn't have the capacity of saying no at all. And no is the beginning. I'm not saying that that's the end, but that's the beginning of the beginning. You know, you have to start by kind of questioning of, you know, why is this? And then the will is much more deeper. And it is something that Lion is talking about. And that is the core of it. So with the only point I'm making here is that no is the beginning of will. Because if you just say yes to everything that is around you, you're never going to actually develop a will. So it's like it's a sequence that I'm thinking of.
Well, that's why the lion almost lines up with the child.
Yes,
in your graphic.
In my graphic, that's my take of it. It's like the beginning. It's like the beginning. But a child is a lot more than lion. Next up is going to be let's see, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to build on what you guys had just talked about. And I had it underlined as the no. It's not only no, but it's the no to duty, which is actually, you know, profound when you're talking about in philosophical purposes. Even if you're talking about something like Kant, you know, where duty is, you know, obviously the most important thing, and that, no, you know, that is where I'm in agreement that it's where it starts. That's where no more, I don't need to do this, and that's where you start to say, I'm going to do this instead. And I like that transition. I mean, I agree with both of you guys, what you both said, but that really, the no to duty really spoke to me.
Wonderful. Meredith, did you have something to say? You have unmuted.
No, thanks.
Okay.
I'm listening. Thank you very much.
Okay. Then I'm going to mute you. Next up is Madeline.
Yes, I believe that Nietzsche drew upon Zoroastrianism quite extensively for this. Apparently, the dragon is in the snake class of beings, which is the evil force in their religion. And it has to do with lies and taking away from the truth. And I wonder if here Nietzsche is saying that duty and tradition are the last set of lies that have to be conquered by the lion, by the sun, by the light of the will.
Wonderful. Let's read these two paragraphs. It's very short. Who is the great dragon whom the spirit will no longer call Lord and God? Thou shalt is the name of the great dragon. But the spirit of the lion says, I will. Thou shalt lies in his way, sparkling like gold, an animal covered with scales. And on every scale shines a golden thou shalt. So this is like the values of the society, the values of the tradition that is being captured by the dragon. My brothers, why is there a need in the spirit for the lion? Why is not the beast of burden, which renounces and is reverent, enough? So let me pose that as a question. So if you wanted to answer this question, why is there a need in the spirit for the lion? Why is not the beast of burden, the camel, which renounces and is reverent, enough? Laura, why do you think? You need to unmute yourself.
As you said, I mean, with the camel, there'll be no change, and with the lion, there will be. It's quite simple.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else?
I said it all.
David.
Ah, shucks.
Yeah, maybe for some people it's, being a camel is pretty comfortable, but I think for somebody like Nietzsche, he sees the lion as being a step toward in the right direction, the casting off of society's norms and finding your own truth is what I think the lion's all about.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, David. Next up is Phil.
Yeah, that goes to my earlier comment that he is building a foundational structure, rebuilding foundational structure. I want to analyze the word will.
Mm-hmm.
Will could also be, I am willing to do it in the right circumstance, or will could just simply be a condition of the mind that I need to will something in the being, not just listen to orders. So therefore, I am taking possession of the psychic energy that I have, because we usually think the body, the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. He is saying, no, the will is an important part. So, you could interpret that as like, yes, I'm willing in the right condition, but I'm not willing in the wrong conditions.
Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to kind of initiative, like it's your capacity to initiate things. Like camel does not initiate things. Camel reacts to things. Things happen to him and he takes that. There is no element at all of initiation. So this lion is that element in human spirit of initiation. Eric.
Yeah, I agree. That was really good, Phil. Made me think a lot about that. And then my thought was just about the change thing. Someone said there'll be no change. Well, there'll be no change in society, but there'll also be no change in the individual as well. And that's, that's just my simple take on that.
Yes, I mean, all it's all change. And again, you have to remember that he's writing this in 19th century when the entire society is changing in a way which is unheard of before. Like throughout history, a grandchild's life is not that different from grandfather's life. Suddenly in modern times with the Industrial Revolution, everything is changing dramatically. And all the traditions, all the ways of thinking about traditions as being that these are the glorious things that are going to last forever, those are being undercut. And that's the context in which he's writing. Next up is Alvaro. Alvaro, what do you think about this question that why is there a need in the spirit for the lion? Why is not the beast of burden, the camel, which renounces and is reverent, enough?
Yeah, this question makes me think about yet another question. It makes me think, but the question is, why is there not a need for the camel? In the sense that I think that in order to become a lion, you need to pass through being a camel first.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Go ahead.
And one of the things that it makes me think about is that when you get to the lion stage, maybe you're disregarding the values that were imposed to you, but you're still seeking values. And you might as well get to that point without going through the camel stage, for example, disregarding values at all. So not seeking your own values, but basically also not seeking any values at all. And I don't think that's what Nietzsche was maybe trying to convey in the writing.
Excellent. Alvaro, that's a fantastic point, because you have to realize that, I mean, what the point is that, you know, the traditions are there for a reason. They were supporting something, and just saying no completely to everything actually means nihilism. It's like destroying of all values. And so actually it's the other thing that he's talking about is these are the stages of spirit. So for example, if you want to learn something, you have to actually learn, like suppose you were to learn a skill, you have to actually sit at the feet of people and learn something. And only when you have kind of mastered it up to a level, you can start initiating something. So there is that humility you need to have in order to absorb the good products of tradition. And that means being like a camel to some extent, because you are carrying the burden. And so you can't really be a lion and actually survive unless there is a base of camel. So there is a dependence. You know, camel rests on the lion rests on the camel. But if it is properly resting, it is able to do more. It can add things. It can be done. You can be a lion in a way that actually destroys the camel and then destroys itself, as you're correctly pointing out. But it is the element of initiative, but that initiative needs to take in everything good that has happened and then work with it. But excellent point. Thank you very much. Next up is Mushki, followed by Tim. Mushki.
So I'm still working this out myself, but I know the next level is a child, and the child's advantage is innocence, but the disadvantage would be that children can be naive. So I believe that that's why we need the lion before the child, so that when we become a child, we're not naive, and we have that backbone that the lion part of us gives us.
Wonderful. We'll come to that. That's a very interesting point, but we'll come to that fully when we look at the child, just like we are looking at right now, the transition between camel and lion. So the element that lion brings it is initiative, ability to change. That's the element that brings in. The child will bring something. And just like we were saying that there is something in camel that lion actually depends on. Similarly, there is something in lion that the child depends on. And we'll look at that. Excellent point. Next up is going to be Tim, David, Laura, and Phil. Tim.
Okay, so the reason why the beast of burden, he didn't say camel there, but maybe he's referring to the camel. One would assume he's referring to the camel, is not enough, is because that would be us. That would be the person allowing the meaning to come in, allowing truth, allowing the what is reality to enter. But then there's this part of us that resists being that, the part of us that wants to remain in the way we are, the way the status quo, the easier way. It's difficult one has to put forth effort, much effort, to assimilate the things of the spirit truth. Okay, so one has to become a lion to overcome, to fight oneself, the part that wants to resist.
Excellent point, Tim. I mean, these metaphors are very, very rich, and they have very deep psychological significance. Camel, if you want to move to Daniel Kahneman, is very much system one. That means you're doing things which come to you naturally. You're operating in the in the comfort zone all the time. Lion necessarily means effort, necessarily means discomfort, necessarily means strife. Whereas camel means being comfortable and being kind of carrying on in a habitual way. So absolutely, that's a great point. Next up is going to be David, Laura, and Phil. David.
I wonder if in the air at that time in the mid 1800s, this idea of the three parts, because eventually Freud came up with the idea of the id, which is like the child, superego, which is what the camel's dealing with, all the superegos typically consider the parental guidance. So the camel is taking on the burden of culture, the parents, and all the rest. And the lion is the ego, the will, the selfish kind of a will, not selfish, not in a bad way. Anyway, this idea of three parts seems to me very parallel with Freud. And I just wonder if in the air at that time was a lot of kind of the idea of three parts to a personality, or
where
it
is
just seems to me very parallel.
It's interesting. It is three. David, have we lost David? David, looks like we lost you. Okay. Okay, there you are. You're back. Okay.
No, I'm here.
Okay, very good. So one question: where is child in Freud?
Id. The child is the id with.
Okay. It's slightly different. The way in which he breaks it up is different, but it's very interesting. They're definitely superego, but okay, that's very interesting. We'll talk about it. We'll kind of map Freud as we go along. We'll have plenty of opportunities of doing that. Thank you. Next up is going to be Laura, followed by Phil. Laura, why do you think spirit needs the lion? Why is camel not enough?
Well, I think, camel does carry the burden, and I wonder if camel in some way maybe unloads some of the burden for the lion, to take on. I don't know, maybe the camel has a little more involvement in the process. It's not clear if he's capable of it, but obviously you need will. I mean, nothing changes, if you don't have the will to do something. If there's a will, you find a way, and when you find that way, you create change. And once you create change, it's a generating process. So I don't understand how society could, move on without that, So lion is it, that is the key, igniter of our culture, our society.
Thank
so
you.
That's
Thank
how
you.
I see the lion. Okay.
Thank you. I like the term igniter. I think that is a very good, it is the igniter. It is the fire in the belly. It is the kind of the what shall I say? The starter. It's like it's the thing that gets things started. Next up is Phil, followed by Madeline. Phil.
Yeah, I like the fact that someone brought up that the camel is necessary, because we overlook the camel quite often as the kneeling thing that will obey. But, in the 19th century, particularly, so much change is happening. It became clear that that the culture has become exhausted. And so the creative force of the artist or other creative forces is necessary to reinterpret the structure of society. But on the other hand, if everybody became a creative artist in a new society, that wouldn't work either. You need the bus drivers, you need the street sweepers, those people who will continue to work. If everybody was just sort of like imagining this and that and this and that, you have a lot of creativity, but nobody would be actually doing the work that's necessary to sustain the culture. So therefore, it is also necessary. So I accept that, and that's important to point out. But the lion at that moment was needed in order to reposition society in a way so it could see a new possibility. So creative force beyond even anything else. You know, we could itemize it, inventions of machines, creative artists such as Beethoven. I mean, all this is a creative force that is going to shift, you know, kind of like a chiropractor realign society in the right way so it could now function in a new way. So in that sense, it's good.
Wonderful. Phil, that was great, great comment. I mean, another approach to it is to look at kind of system 1 and system 2. System 1 is doing like 90% of the work, or maybe 95% of the work. System 2 sits on the top of it. It is the one that, system 2 is the one that allows for, that makes possible changes in system 1. But most of the horsepower is in system 1. So it's very, very important. And to kind of continue the metaphor of the chiropractic, if the chiropractors would arbitrarily come up with saying, okay, this is what you need to do, they would actually break the body. Okay. In order to be a good chiropractor, you actually need to understand the camel very well and how it is put together and how it needs to change, how the body needs to change, and know exactly where firstly, you need to have a deep understanding of the camel. And then, go ahead.
In my translation, at least, it doesn't matter, but the camel itself already sensed the exhaustion. It runs, in my translation, it ran into the forest. It ran in the desert is the same thing. It senses that the system was exhausting itself. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't going to last if there wasn't some new structure that was created.
Wonderful. Thank you. Madeline.
There we go. I think perhaps the camel is sick and tired of being a camel. It's tired of carrying the burden. It's tired of kneeling. It's tired of drinking the dirty water of truth. And those are also very, very Christian themes. And I just wanted to point out something that struck me early on is also the transition between the type of animal they are. The camel is an herbivore, and the lion is a predator. It's a carnivore, an obligate carnivore. So when he is talking about the will, he's not talking about, a happy dog or something. He's talking about an animal that goes out and kills and takes what it wants.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. And your voice has shifted to being a voice of God again. I don't know what's happening with your audio, but that's what has happened. Next up is the child. But say, my brothers, what can the child do that even the lion could not do? Why must the praying lion still become a child? The child is innocence and forgetting, a new beginning, a game, a self-propelled wheel, a first movement, a sacred yes. For the game of creation, my brothers, a sacred yes is needed. The spirit now wills his own will, and he who had been lost to the world now conquers his own world. All right, so the question is, what is it that a child can do that a lion cannot? Dave.
Yeah, Shrikant, this becomes very mysterious. It seems to me that we've started with the camel and then the lion defeated the dragon, but now it seems like we're going to start over. And the forgetting word is very revelatory to me, that the child is innocent, a new beginning, a game. I don't quite understand that, the self-propelled wheel, but a first movement, a sacred yes. For some reason, we've had the lions declared, I will. And this last sentence is, the spirit now wills his own will. And to me, this falls in this biographical stuff that, this battle is gone or whatever. And Nietzsche now declares his own independence. But this
Thank
is
you.
very mysterious. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Mushki, Joe, and Evanique. Mushki.
So to me, the camel is past orientated, holding like the burdens of the past. And the lion is future oriented, always like pursuing goals and like living in the future. And the child is present, just thinking in the present moment and trying to use that as its pivot point.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Joe, followed by Evanique. Joe.
Yeah, well, while the lion is overcoming, the child is it's a new beginning. So the idea that it's starting new has an appreciation from where it came from. That's one of the more important things, that it understands the camel, that it understands the lion, and that it's coming into its own and can create whatever it wants from there. And I think that contrasted with the lion, where the lion at least is it's a sacred no.
Mm-hmm.
The child is a sacred yes, which that distinction is that it's creating its own, as opposed to just instead of going out like the beginning. I think it comes full circle with the I will and its own independence from there. I also and I'll just leave it there for now.
Wonderful. I think that, kind of sacred yes, a sacred no, followed by sacred yes. I think that captures it. Like the culture, another way of looking at it is I think of it in terms of culture and nature. So culture, the camel just accepts the culture, whatever traditions it has, just accepts it and just works within it. Lion is a stage of saying no. It's kind of beginning of will. And child is a way of saying yes to nature itself. So kind of going back and recreating things. So lion is mostly about tearing things down. It is clearing out ground, which is no longer working. And that creates a space where the child actually starts to build from first principles. So that's how I see it. Next up is Evanique, Eric, Phil, and Laura. Evanique.
Hi, so I'm so new to Nietzsche. So this, the one thing, to me, the child was the one that connected it all. Like that's like, I was like a puzzle, and the child was like the end piece. And when I thought of this, when you were talking about the child, I was thinking of the nature of a child. A child will say yes, but a child will also question. So to me, it's like I see the child as the manifestation of the camel and the lion, because the camel will just accept it and accept the burden. The lion says no, but it almost feels like he doesn't even, he's just rebelling. So it's kind of almost like the teenager.
Mm-hmm.
He's just rebelling just to say no. And the child is like, okay, but I have questions. Like you could tell the child to do something, and sometimes a child will say no, sometimes a child will say yes, or sometimes a child will say why. And why is the biggest thing that they ask all the time. Why? Why should I do this? If you can answer those questions, the majority of the time you can get the child to say yes to it. But if you cannot, a child will be stubborn like the lion. Or if you can answer the questions, it'll be like the camel and it'll take on the burden. So I think the child is the manifestation.
Wonderful. Beautifully put. Thank you. Next up is Eric, Phil, Laura, and Madeline. Eric.
Well, the new beginning, a game, first movement, I think it allows the creation of new things, new ideas, new structure, new culture. And then the forgetfulness, I think that is maybe the forgetfulness of maybe what the camel was enduring. Yeah, just allows a new direction, especially with a self-rolling wheel, to go in a different direction. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Next up is Phil.
Yeah, I think this is an important step. You know, I pointed out before that the lion was willing in the right conditions. And the moment has come because what the child does in its innocence is able to open up the possibilities to peer into the infinite. So I think in that sense it's important. But going back to your graphics, which is not in Zarathustra itself, is like the child is looking at a butterfly. And once again, I want to bring up, is the butterfly dreaming he's a man, or is the man dreaming he's a butterfly? So there's an understanding of a kind of funny loop that is still there, that it can never really totally understand the infinite, but is willing to question the infinite and allow the opening to open that possibility of being connected to something that's deeper, something that's infinite. So I think that's important, because if you take it too seriously, then you could also fall into a dream that is not real as well. So it's important to have that questions around and know and realize in a way that you, as being a finite being, can never actually understand the infinite. All you could do is question. So that opening is very, very important.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. I always like to connect up various of the meetups that we have. Yesterday, my friend Yasuhiko was here, and he was talking about 3 stages of self-realization. And he says the first step, what happens is that he says, I want to show you his first stages, 3 stages. Actually, there are like the initial stage, and then there are 3 further stages. So I'm going to talk about the initial stage and the first 2 stages. He says in the first stage, and I'm talking about this because I see it mapping exactly onto the camel, lion, and child with very different kind of connotations. He says what happens is that when we grow up, we have a nature as when we are born as a child, but the culture actually puts in a lot of stuff in us, which is not necessarily consonant with our true nature. And we absorb all of that from culture, and that becomes, our psyche becomes full of those things, ideas, habits, emotions, all of it. And that limits what we can do, because we've kind of lost the core of who we are by just mimetically or imitatively absorbing everything of the culture. And this is like equivalent of a camel. He says the first step you need to do is to do subtraction. You need to get rid of things which you're doing, which are not really your true nature. So that's subtraction. Lion is all about subtraction. It is getting rid of stuff. And the next stage is you connect with the Tao, connect with nature. So kind of going back to nature. That's the child stage, where you are in touch with nature itself, and in an authentic way start relating to that. But in order to reach that, you need to actually clear this stuff out. And that's what the stage of lion, I think, is all about. Next up is going to be Laura, followed by Madeline. Laura, what do you think? Why you need to unmute? Yeah. What is it that the child brings that the lion does not?
Well, I think that the child really brings the ability to represent, and I'll go back to that. And in so doing, really gives a more holistic perspective to everything that's happened, and gives the ability in that way to help people create new. That's what I think.
Wonderful, thank you. And again, relating to Avanik's point, that child has the elements of both, in the sense that the child is able to authentically value things in the culture also. But now it is valuing it. It is saying, this is what is good. This is what is good that is not known yet in the culture. I see it for the first time. I'm curious. At the same time, he's delighted with things. So there is kind of that combination of those. Next up is Madeline.
Yes, it strikes me that there are two salient differences between the camel lion grouping and the child. For one thing, children play. They play and learn, they play, they learn, they play, they learn. And we don't usually think of camels and lions as playing. The other thing is that, and so they have an exuberance. The other thing is that out of the three beings, it's the only one that's human. And so I wonder if Nietzsche is saying that in this phase, we're leaving our animal selves behind.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see. Does anybody else have any comment? Rupali, go ahead. Rupali, you're on mute.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I was just
No
trying to turn on my microphone. So this is very interesting. It's a new topic for me. And I was thinking that, after reading the essay, I thought that this is about transformation. And of course, metamorphosis means transformation. And it's your journey in life. And instead of getting caught up in the day-to-day rut of, doing things just because you're meant to do, you take charge of your actions and your goals. And then as you do that, you also are aware. He ends with, the child is actually using its own natural powers. And it reminds me of Louis Sullivan. We talked about man's powers in that, and Maria Montessori's ideas of natural powers that humans have. And that to be able to create, to be able to think, to be able to take actions, and the childlike innocence of, just letting go. Don't hold on to things that are that cause pain to you. So in that respect, where when he says it's a new beginning, children just let go of things. They don't hold on to grudges, and therefore their life is just so simple and joyful. So I think that's my take on this essay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So folks, okay, it's going to be Phil. Phil, go ahead.
Human beings are different because they have nature and culture. They also understand, or they could understand, the difference between the limits and the unlimited. So my word for that, of course, representation is part of culture, but my word for that is really equivocation. Human beings have the ability to venture into the unknown and back again to the known, venture into the infinite and back to the finite, and venture into nature and back into culture. I think this skill of maneuvering back and forth is important. Quite often as adults, as lions, as camels, we are not able to equivocate into this other dimension. And so therefore we must not lose the child within us, because it allows us to move back and forth and not forget about one or the other, but live in between the two and somehow synthesize the two in order to create what mankind is able to do that the lion in a way cannot do. Right.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, folks, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start the breakout rooms. We're going to do breakout rooms for 15 minutes. And the aim is to come up with the best possible questions you can about these three things, okay? I'm going to run the breakout rooms only for 15 minutes, come back with the best questions you have, and then we're going to do a lightning round of Q&A on the questions. So we'll take all the questions, and then I'll collect them. I will compile them, organize them, and then we're going to go through all of them. I'm starting the breakout rooms now. Hi there. How are you doing?
Not so bad. Not so bad. I didn't want to say that before, but if I can say something.
Please, please.
Okay. Let's imagine person. Let's call him PS. Okay. He was born about 110 years after Friedrich Nietzsche. Okay. And when he was about 1975.
No, who are you talking about? Oh, sorry, I missed the name.
Sorry. Let's imagine that there is person who was born about 110 years after Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah.
So around 1960. Then that person basically thought about himself as camel until about when he was 15, 16, and until 75. Then he started thinking about more and more. There was combination of Camel and Lion until about 1984, 1985. When he left completely his thinking about being Camel and did very drastic and important things in his life and become Lion for majority of his other life. And then he started studying more closer to his 60s or 50s and 60s and start enjoying the meetups, for example, in close to his 60s. And he become child because he realized that he cannot stay only Lions, that he has that he has to go back to.
It's nice to meet you, Paul. Wonderful. No, this is such a beautiful, he has such a amazing poetic flair, and he captures something so deeply. And the thing is that,
how come you are the only one who is not the only one, but very often people are talking about that, but why they don't see that poetry in it? He is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That you read many philosophers and man, that's boring. Like you have to push yourself to hold it.
Right.
And you can read it like you can read it in laying in the bed and put good music in with it, and you can just read it. But
yeah,
I think that you understand my point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just I think he's a master artist. He's basically an artist. And what an artist does is that they are like harbingers. It's easier, like they have the imagination, they have the intuition, and they're able to actually portray something that sometimes they do not have full words to fully describe it, but they can do it in a suggestive way, which is what art's power is. And he does that all the time.
And that combination in him being philosopher and poet and artist, it's unbelievable. That's why I think that he's so known. And because of that unbelievable combination is that you have either a novelist or philosophers. I think that Sartre tried that, but I don't think that definitely he's not on that level. No, that I'm not putting down that Sartre. Absolutely not. No, I don't mean that. But this is the completely different level.
Yeah.
Like, that combination of the art and poetry and philosophy and his what we all know. I know what we all know that, like today I noticed how important for you it is to put him in the historical perspective. What you were talking about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, something like that. That I can feel that. I know that you understand what he was about, where he came from, and he could present it so good in those days, and he saw ahead what would happen. Like he certainly didn't know 100%. He's not Nostradamus or anything like that, but he knew the problem which will happen in Western societies and
Right. See, I think that, see, I have a tremendous respect for original thinkers. And what happens is that when you're faced with a new situation, new situation in life, most people are too scared to actually face it. So they keep looking back at the past. And it takes tremendous courage to actually look at the present and say, okay, what exactly is going on? And he's one of those people. And then you are projecting forward. And it doesn't matter, actually, to me, it doesn't matter what mistakes they make, because what really matters is what did they get right? Because in many ways, we kind of stand on their shoulders and we can see better because we're standing on their shoulders. So I don't even I look at primarily, I'm just in awe of saying, oh, this person actually saw something about their time and were able to actually explicate it so well. So what would you say? So let me ask a question another way, because I'm just beginning kind of a deep dive into Nietzsche. What do you think his limits are? What do you think you thought that was his weakness in philosophy, in thinking? Because what happens many times is that when people grasp something new, they miss something which was old, which was valuable sometimes, because they get fully enamored. And I have tremendous sympathy for that.
I don't know if I would call it weakness. He okay, for example, you know a little bit, I think, let's, for example, Hegel, or Kant, and mainly Hegel. Hegel tried to come up with this system. And Nietzsche knew that system he cannot come up with this system, because system didn't, I don't know if the system even exists. And let's put that, but because he couldn't come up with the system, that's why he certainly, we can talk about syphilis and all that stuff, but he couldn't come up in the brain with that system. So that's why he basically was collapsing after, because his brain was unbelievably working, like overworking. Basically, he destroyed his brain like you destroy the car. If you are pushing the horse or car or something too much, you will destroy it. And he destroyed his brain by thinking too much, by working that brain too much. And he tried to come up with the system or with reason or with to express. He could express excellently, much better than you, me, and like a majority people in Antwerp. But he couldn't come up with the solution. And that because he couldn't come up with the solution, that's, I think, that killed him.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's I mean, and I'm just in awe. I mean, I particularly like Zarathustra because that's like the easiest. It's so beautiful and so delightful. And people get pieces of it, and people are kind of groping, but still I like all this dialogue because people get some things from different angles. I'm also very eager to see where the limits of people are, because it's not just like these ideas. I also like to understand how people, what is it that people get? What is it that people don't get? What are the, it's like, I'm looking at like this, almost like a kind of hermeneutics of saying, okay, what is it that people get easily? Like some people get the metaphorical part, like their minds work in a way where they can actually see the projections. And with that projection, they get actually the heart of what he's saying. Some people get lost into kind of some small details. And it's very interesting to see the kind of range of responses.
Like I always admire you personally, that you are able to go through and try to, and you are very, compared to me, you are much more patient person and much better person, that you can show people again and again. I can see it on your voice and I can hear it, that you are trying to explain to them, kind of show them where Nietzsche and many other subjects which you are talking about, where is the truth, not truth, but which way they should go, because some people just don't have it in them or don't have enough education. I don't know. Say what it is. I admire, honestly, I do. I don't mean it to put on your good side. No, I just admire that on you, and you are much better in that than me. Why I am, one of the reasons why I have Nietzsche and many, because I I know, and I don't want to put it down, but how strong it is. As you are strongly from your tradition, because you grew up and you were born in basically what I think is middle of India, and certainly that you are influenced by that. By where I am from, when you think like Nietzsche was about 300-400 kilometers west from me. Around me, from my home, Mendel, George Mendel, Freud, Husserl, they were basically 20 minutes from where I am. And certainly, so I have 50% Czech and 50% German, and all that mixed there, the Jewish, Germans, and Czech, all that, and that's why Freud was there, because I can see. He was abused by the father the same as I was abused, because they all grew up in the same societies. They didn't change even after 100 years. After it was still the same. And when I was the other day when I was in Mina, when I about man's meaning, psychiatrist, and because. You know how strong it is for me that Auschwitz and that Auschwitz, and that because how close it was. There was my mom died very, and there was one German lady who, when my mom came to my hometown, and she didn't have the mother, the German lady Malchi took over, and I asked her, Malchi, did you knew Oscar Schindler? Because I knew that Oscar Schindler lived and worked in Opava, in my hometown. He said, and Malchi said, he was nice. So I said, Malchi. I said, all the girls did. He was shyster. He went after every girl in Opava. He was known as that, but he was still good German. He didn't want, like that was that's what she was explaining to me, that it was horrible. The good Germans, they hated Hitler. They hated his God. They couldn't stand him. You know, but that machinery was so strong that they couldn't do anything about that. They didn't want. Many of them didn't want to go to war to do anything like that. Like that's why he did what he did. They were used to living with Jews and with Czechs. It was just normal. Somebody was Czech, somebody was German, somebody was Jew. It was normal. It was normal. Then Hitler came and everything was that. You know how strong it was. For example, my grandma, because Hitler came and he on a 15th of March of 39, and he came on the right and he drove on the right. Before that, in Czechoslovakia, everything was on the left. They were driving like in England. And my grandma drove on her bicycle on the left until she died. No. Yeah, I won't listen to Hitler. No, I learn to drive on the left, and that's the right way. No, I won't listen. That's how strong she was. That was her, and that was her something to do against Hitler. That she will be still driving on the left.
Yeah. Wonderful. No, I mean, that's a big point. You know, it's like we have, you know, I come from the Indian, you know, culture. I also grew up in almost like a literary salon where like all the top authors used to come to our house to perform plays. All the top authors from India used to come. My grandfather was, and what happens is, so that you kind of get used to that. You know, you get used to kind of conversation as something producing great things. Because these are the people who are writing. At the same time, these are the same people who are coming and talking to me.
That had to be unbelievable. To be with them and around them. Yeah,
exactly. Because what happens is that it just sets your standard, you know, of saying that you can actually, in a conversation, you can change your mind, you can transform the way you think, transform your life, the way you feel about things. Because these are all kind of great writers, great thinkers. So that's how I grew up, and I see this tremendous potential of doing conversation, and it's amazing. I've been on weekends. I do these author talks And it's great. Some of the top thinkers come and they love it. They love it. It's just great to see, both kind of conversation with me and then conversation, in the breakout rooms and then the questions, everything. Like Yasuhiko was here yesterday and he's very, very good thinker. It's like he can think about East and West. Really better than anybody else I've seen so far. So it's great.
But you can, I noticed that you can quite a bit because you know quite a bit about both West from your, after you left them.
Oh, I think everybody's coming back. Give me just a second. Hi, welcome back, folks. Welcome back. All right, so it's now time for questions. Okay, we are going to do a lightning round of questions. Only the biggest question on your mind. Okay, so go ahead and choose the biggest question on your mind and go ahead and type exclamation mark. And I will collect all the questions. I will put it in ways which is, I'll try to kind of simplify them. I'll try to organize them. And then I'm going to pose the questions to all of us. And then everybody gets to answer them in the lightning round. Okay, so let's see. So go ahead and line up and try to be very brief, as short as possible. All right, it's going to be Joe, Alvaro, and Rupali. Joe, what's your question?
So maybe you can help me frame it. The idea, I'm trying to figure out where I am in my metamorphosis. How do you determine where you are?
Oh,
in
beautiful,
your
beautiful, wonderful. Yeah. You put it very nicely. How do you determine where are you in your metamorphosis? Perfect. Alvaro, what is your question?
Yes, we were discussing the fact that Nietzsche was actually the son of ministers, and even though it is assumed that he is, against, it is understood that he's against institutions and institutional religions. We're wondering whether the child figure is actually coming from the Gospels, as of when Jesus says,
"Got it,"
that the kingdom of heaven belongs to children.
Sure. So your question is that does the child metaphor originate with Jesus, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. Next up is going to be Rupali, Mushki, and Mike. Rupali.
Hi. So my question is the three stages, the camel, the lion, and the child. Do they mean the camel is the stage of acceptance, the lion is the stage of taking action, and the child is the stage of self-actualization?
Wonderful, wonderful. So I will put it in an open-ended way. What is the one word summary you have of these three, each of these three stages? Okay. Next up is going to be Mushki, Mike, and Phil. Mushki, what's your question?
So can we experience regression in these stages? Can we move backwards?
Beautiful.
And also, what are some disadvantages of a child? One, I have examples, children are impatient, and maybe that can cause us to move back.
So can we regress? And second question is, what are the disadvantages of a child? All right, very good. Next up is going to be Mike, Phil, Eric, and David. Mike.
In the text that I read, encountered around this is a dragon eating its own tail and growing it and growing into an eternal recurrence cycle.
Ouroboros,
and each cycle getting stronger and better, leading to the Ubermensch, which is another one of his things. So the two themes that are in the original text are Ubermensch and eternal recurrence, and I don't think we covered those in enough detail. So
no. Mike, what we are doing, we are going to do all of that, but we are going to do them when they come up.
Oh, well, it's sort of come up that this is in context with the eternal recurrence, that these cycles repeat, each time getting better and better.
Okay, okay, got it. So what you're saying is that this cycle, the 3-stage cycle, keeps repeating again and again, getting higher and higher. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
And,
wonderful. Okay, I'll put that as a question. Thank
refining
you.
that a little
Thank
bit,
you, Mike.
yeah. All right.
Next up is going to be Phil, Eric, David, and Laura. Phil, what's your question?
Well, it's actually the question of the group. We started out by asking, like, why are there only 3 categories?
Okay.
And we concluded that it was just the beginning, because and it went back to, in a sense.
No answers. I will post that as a question, Phil.
Okay.
Why are
good.
there only 3 categories? Let people answer that. Okay.
Okay, good.
Thanks. Next up is Mushki. Mushki, go ahead.
What? No, I already asked my question.
Oh, you already asked. Oh, sorry about that. Eric, followed by David and Laura. Eric.
Don't we need to ebb and flow between these 3 spirits in order to succeed in life?
Wonderful. Don't we need to toggle or switch between them to succeed? Wonderful. Excellent. Next up is David.
Yes, well, Phil has already asked my question, which is, why are we attempting to crush the rich tapestry of diverse humanity into a mere 3 categories?
Okay, wonderful. I will put that tapestry of your verbiage on the top of Phil's question, and I will present it that way. Wonderful. Excellent. Next up is, let's see, Laura. Laura, what's your question?
I guess I'm curious why there's never any mention about the learned, some point at which we bring in the educator or, in this process.
Okay. Why is there no mention of a teacher
I don't know,
or learned?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay, very good. All right, so we got good number of questions. Okay, let's go quickly through it. All right. Okay, so where should we start? Let's see here. Okay, let's start with why are there only 3? And if you wanted to add one more, having the same power as this, okay, you can't cheat by saying, oh, there is this little kind of variation. No. It has to have the same kind of power as these 3. Would you add anything? So if you want to answer the question, go ahead and type exclamation mark. Evanik.
When I thought of that, why are they 3, beginning, middle, end? Or that's the way I thought of it. It's just beginning, middle, and I don't know if I would add any more. I think the more you add, the more complicated it gets.
Got it. Wonderful. David, Joe, Dave, and Judith. David, what do you think? You have argued for the tremendous richness of life, and you're very disappointed that these are only 3 things. If you had to add a 4th, which speaks as loudly as these 3, roars as loudly as these 3, what would you choose?
Sound like a game show.
Supposing I wanted to become a dragon.
Dragon. Okay, that's not bad. That's actually pretty good, because it's kind of, he represents dragon. He's using dragon to represent all of culture. So the dragon already appears, but excellent point. Sorry about the interruption. Let me go ahead. Let's see here. Joe, Dave, and Judith. Joe.
So the question is, wait a minute, what will we add, or why 3?
So why 3, and would you add anything? Is it missing anything?
I don't think it's missing anything. I'm wondering if, and this could be.
Sorry, Joe. Let me interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
So it's like we are being a lions here. Okay. We're saying don't be a camel. The tradition has put 3 on the table. Is there more? Is there more? No, 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 this is not good enough.
And the
Can you be a,
Overman is.
can you be a child and discover some new butterfly in there?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to come back on you. Come back with that. I mean, I guess the Overman wouldn't count into that process because that would be kind of the child. So that would be the fourth. But I'm wondering if there's, you know, we've talked about the Freud aspect of why there may be three, but is there a religious component that he's countering as to why there are three? You know, if you think about the Trinity, like, you know, that the idea that, you know, that's somehow makes up, he's countering religion altogether. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Dave, followed by Judith. Dave.
Well, great minds think alike. So I will follow my lower hemisphere, brother David, in agreeing the dragon should be the other character. I'm just surprised because it's such a powerful character in the story, why it isn't part of the metamorphosis. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Judith, followed by David. Judith.
I'm okay with three. I don't know why it's three. I wasn't feeling very comfortable about it, but actually Mike S helped me feel better about it because when I began to think of it as a cyclical nature, so that we take on this burden, then we destroy it, we take it apart, then we kind of look at it fresh like a child with curiosity again, and then we end up reburdening ourselves as a camel again, take it apart. And so hopefully we all evolve through the process. So if I think of it that way, I'm okay with it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is David, Madeline, David and Madeline. David.
Well, there are thousands of varying types of lions. And a lot of lions want to become dragons. They're authoritarian rebels who want to impose their system on everybody else. So they actually want to become dragons. I mean, but there, as I said, there are thousands of different types of categories of lion, for example.
Thank you. Next up is Madeline.
I would add fourth element, I would add the sage. I think that's what's missing. The child is young and vulnerable and has no real experience. So I would add the sage.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madeline. Next up is Phil.
Yeah, I would add the butterfly, which is in your graphics, because the dream. Because I would add that because that could be something that adds a folly to the story.
Wonderful. So my answer to that is that I think it's the same, going back to Jordan Peterson, camel is order. Lion is seeing that there is chaos and the child is trying to put these things together. It's the one that is skating at both, it respects both of them and is working with both of them to build something. And so I think, I think because it is eternal recurrence, you can do kind of the fractal version of it. You can do like you can do like the lion part of the child, or the camel part of the child, or the child part of the lion. So you can do kind of fractals from it to allow for many things, like the kinds of like different kinds of lions you can have. So it's a very powerful structure that is there, that I think many people have used in multiple ways. Thank you.
Yeah, but wait a minute. But the butterfly, particularly in the butterfly dream, is that it adds an element of self-criticism.
Very good, very good. And I think the sage is also a very good candidate if you wanted to add a fourth one. But in that sense, I see the sage as being simply a child who has grown up. So like I look at somebody like Leonardo, I see him as a child and as a sage at the same time, with a child who has been at it for a long time, long enough time, something like that. Next up is going to be about you and these stages. You know, this is kind of combination of Joe's question and Mushki's question. How do you know where you are? To what extent, you know, how do you evaluate yourself in these terms? To what extent are you a camel? To what extent are you a lion? To what extent are you a child? How, you know, how is this something that you can actually use to think about yourself? So that's the question. You can go ahead and type exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom in order to answer. Evanik, followed by Eric. Evanik.
I think you can be all three. I'm going to do a little bit of a cop out there. And what I mean by that is that I think in different areas of our life, we could be different things. Like you could be the camel and submit to what you don't know and knowingly take on things. That way you can learn. You could be the lion, and then once you learn or once you realize something's off, you can say no and you can knock that off a little bit. And then you could be the child in that you can willingly take, I mean, I think you can willingly take on the burden and know why and create something new out of it. So I think depending on what area of your life it is, you could be all three things at the same time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Evanik. Next up is Eric, Joe, Judith, Rupali, and Laura. Eric.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before in one of my answers. I think I was a camel, and when I was, you know, being a Catholic, I think I wanted to see what else is out there. So I think I had enough courage to say no, and the lion. So I think I'm personally somewhere between the lion and the child, an early child in that regard. That's just how I see myself.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Joe, Judith, Rupali, and Laura. Joe.
So if I took Eric's answer, would that make me a camel again? Like, I mean, no,
It depends whether you take the answer and then rebel against part of it and then come up with a completely new answer of your own, then you would be all three.
Oh, good. Then I'm definitely going to do that. No, they could just to prove. No, I think that this is, because I actually thought about this today. If looking at this, where am I in this process? I'm not the camel anymore, but I'm definitely somewhere between. I'm trying to get to the point where I get to a sacred yes. So I can't say that I'm a child either, but I definitely gotten to the point of sacred no. And so I guess I'm creating space, and 52 living ideas is helping. So there.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Joe. Wonderful. Next up is Judith and Rupali. Judith.
I agree with Evanik. I think that hopefully we're a little bit of all of them in different areas of our lives, in different capacities at all times. It would seem very wrong and somehow if we were just camel. I mean, predominantly, yes, at some points in our life, I think we were just camel. And then when you come out of it and you're a lion and you're kind of looking at things, you recognize how much of a camel maybe you were. And then later on when you're inquisitive, but just in different areas, you may be more or less of a camel, more or less of a lion, and a little bit of a child. And I'd like to think that all of us have a little bit of all three going at the same time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Rupali.
So I'm going to piggyback on that thought that, you know, we are in a continuum, and part of it is reflection, because one of the questions was, could we regress from one of these stages? And if we are not conscious and not aware, then it is easy to regress. And I'm thinking of Napoleon Hill's idea of being on track and off track, and always trying to come back to the track. And that's only through self-awareness and being conscious and practicing these three stages, because these three stages are required through the continuum of our own self-improvement.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Rupali. Next up is going to be Laura, followed by Phil. Laura, what do you think? Where do you fall in these three?
Well, that's it. I think all of it. I think when I was young, I carried a burden of sort of the values of my family versus what I felt my values. And I think they were, definitely attached a lot to the late 60s kind of thing going on. And I didn't take a traditional route after high school and blah, blah, blah. And so then I got to this other point where it became will, and I started doing work where I was always in a will position. I was always doing will, and spent a lot of years in that mode. And then, of course, there was this other period where, trauma struck and I came out and have to be, and that's when I had almost to be child again. And that's where I've been since. And it's been fun. And so here I am.
Thank you, Laura.
Metamorphosis. And it's just the two ideas having to has helped me in this process more than you can imagine.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Next up is Phil.
Of course, when I was very young, I was a child. But when I got
no, Phil, that I can't believe it.
No, no.
You started.
No, I was a child, and then what happened was, like, when I got to elementary school on up to high school, I think I was a camel. I was very obedient, pay attention to my adults and all that kind of stuff. But when I got to college, I became a combination already of the child again and the lion, because I became rebellious, and also, of course, a wonderment in college. All the possibilities began to open up, and it remained that way. I think right now I'm still, you're still a combination of all three, but nonetheless, primarily a child and then a lion, because you have to, in society, be rebellious, at the same time, be innocent, and be wondering about all sorts of things. In fact, there's two very special occasions that I've experienced when I actually didn't do any art because I was physically impaired. I knew that I was an artist. I knew it. Before that, I actually had to do art to prove to myself I was an artist, but I knew I was without doing any art itself.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. All right, let me just make sure. Okay, next question is about the nature of the child. Okay, this is the final question. We're going to take different aspects of it. You can talk about what are the limitations of the child that Mushki was talking about. We can talk about what this child metaphor means. Is this something, is it similar to the Jesus metaphor? What is child? What is a child, and what are your thoughts about it? Because in some ways, this is like the culmination. That is the culmination of those three. Mushki.
So the limitation of the child, I believe, is that children are impatient. And I believe that it's connected to regression, so at least for me, I think that I attained at some point the level of a child, but then the results weren't coming as quickly as I hoped. I believe that now that I was a child, the results should come quicker, and I regress because of my impatience. So I think there's something there. The limitation of a child is that they're impatient.
Thank you. Next up is Joe.
So yes, I mean, in a way, the child, and this is what I kind of, in a way, was trying to say when linking the yes and the no, brings everything full circle, and in a way is redeeming everything else. So by becoming full circle, you're actually redeeming the camel, the lion, and you're becoming something more. So I look at it in a redemptive sense. I know that's a really religious dynamic, but again, I think that there's that aspect of it there, that it's overcoming all the other stages of the metamorphosis.
Yeah, no, I think that is actually very profound, because I think it's like rebirth. It is kind of being born again. You're trying to restart, kind of look at the nature afresh and reintegrate. It is like in the OODA loop, it's kind of reorientation. It's kind of coming back and saying, instead of being caught up in the ways or saying no to something, because no to something can only be a beginning. Because if you just keep saying no, then there is nowhere you're going actually. But a child is kind of, it's rebirth. So I think it very much connects to that. Next up is going to be Madeline, followed by Phil. Madeline.
Yes, just to add on to what Joe is saying, as I recall in a recent meetup, I forget which one, Sanjay was kept bringing the focus back to the importance of the way our brains work. It's not just the executive function, that we have all the older ones going all the time. And what Joe had said much earlier in this current meetup about the child remembering having also been the camel and the lion, I thought was a very good point.
Wonderful. I wanted to add one thing. Again, we're trying to kind of compare different kind of series of thoughts from all kinds of sources. There is a fantastic documentary called Ascent of Man by Jacob Bronowski. Mm-hmm. And the final episode in that is called The Long Childhood. If you don't watch the whole, it is the best documentary that has ever been made. It is, I think, the second documentary that was ever made. When BBC Two started, and it ends with the episode called Long Childhood. If you look at human evolution, or if you look at evolution and then look at the primate tree, as we advance, our childhood becomes more and more. So human beings are characterized by long childhood. And what is the meaning of that? That means we come into this world with our brain only half formed. And rest of the brain is formed in interaction with others and the world to learn. And Jacob Bronowski's idea is that is what really characterizes us, the long childhood. When I look at all the great thinkers that I know of, all of them actually seem to be younger, getting younger and younger, more like a child as they grow in power. Whether it is Leonardo da Vinci or Louis Sullivan, you see that. They actually don't lose the curiosity. Their curiosity keeps increasing as their power. Most people, they're like a camel, its view of possibilities are limited by what the society has given it. Whereas somebody like Leonardo is actually looking at nature afresh to see what is possible and is relentlessly coming up with something. So I think the image of the child, he also, another point that Jacob Bronowski makes, he's a very deep thinker, and I strongly recommend both as a book and as especially the last episode, but all the episodes. His point is that if you look at traditional cultures, they regard adult as the pinnacle of value. You can see, for example, Easter Island, those faces, he uses those. And the child is being told, you have to grow to be that. And that is the end, and that's it, you're done. In the West, child is valued. And that is a complete turn. So in that sense, when you're saying an adult is what you're aiming at, camel is the ideal. So you grow up to be a camel, and then that is good. That is how most traditional societies are. the West prizes the child, which is dramatically different. And I think that's what the significance of this metaphor is. All right, Phil.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I want to point out something. The child is full of inquisitiveness and wonderment, but also the child is very vulnerable. It needs a support structure. And of course, at the beginning, he has support structure because his parents and other people are very tolerant. But as you grow up, what you learn is to be your own protector, to survive in a society so that you could remain a child. But so without the support structure, without a degree of the camelness within you, to be a burden to yourself so you could actually live, and without the protector of the lion to protect yourself from harm others might provide you, as well as nature, then it becomes a problem. So in order to have the child, you have to internalize to a degree the adult without forgetting the child. This is the paradox that we all must solve in order to grow up and continue to be a child.
Beautifully put. I completely agree. I mean, when you look at the ideal in Tao Te Ching, the Chinese ideal, the ideal is not the child, but the sage. And sage has childlike qualities of curiosity and openness to nature. At the same time, the sage has profound understanding of how nature is working and how culture is working. So another way of looking at it is camel is the culture, there is nature, and the child is able to leverage the culture to give it sustenance. And you absolutely need that. You also need that element of being able to say no, that rebelliousness, because otherwise you're going to lose. And then you need the ability of integration, of being able to put things together to create something new that never existed before. And so absolutely all three. Great point, Phil. Next up is Evanique.
When you were talking about the sage, what I was thinking is, I think the sage is all three. You might have said it already, but like the sage is really all three combined. It's the camel in that it accepts nature for what it is. It doesn't try to change it. It almost allows it to just be. It's the lion in that it says no to the things that it needs to say no to, like having and I'm thinking of the Tao, like in having too many things or overly complicating your life unnecessarily. The sage says no to that. And then the child is just the mysteriousness, the wonder, the curiosity of, just like enjoying it, like enjoying the wonder of nature, enjoying the mystery of nature, still asking questions, but like not looking for the correct answer, not trying to be the smartest person in the room, sometimes observing, sometimes answering, sometimes questioning. So I see it as all three, the sage.
Absolutely. That very well put. Very well put. So this is fantastic. I mean, I can't believe how this conversation, I think this format is working really well. And I think we'll be able to do, Joe, this might become your favorite meetup, okay?
There's a chance. I think so.
I know.
Don't ask me tomorrow night, though.
But I think this is good. I think this is great dialogue. We are able to actually talk about. I mean, partly it is Nietzsche, partly it is all Nietzsche. Just like in Tao Te Ching, it's Lao Tzu. Our primary debt is to him and to them, because like they have managed to capture so much meaning in such short space. where we are able to talk about this. And I'm just tremendously grateful to all of you of saying of just the richness of the dialogue here. So Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to pose one more thing, is that despite the fact that Nietzsche is rebellious, he is amazingly in alignment with Western thinking. I'm sure he's influenced by Eastern thinking to a certain degree. He is actually building a foundational structure in which metaphysics has been eliminated, and he understands that, and he now building a foundational structure that builds up rather than metaphysics thrown down, which is very, very different from Eastern culture in a sense. So to that degree, he is actually quite in alignment despite of his rebelliousness, which is sort of very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And that's another reason I want to do this, because I wanted to find something in the West, because there are really three big cultures that you need to master. You need to master the West, you have to master China, and you have to master India. These are kind of the really large cultures which have produced, a billion people each, about the same size throughout history. They have got all very deep traditions. And there is a lot that these three can learn from each other. And I wanted to find something, and I think in Tao Te Ching, we have found something really, really good. In the Chinese tradition, very much deeply, which is deeply Chinese in tradition. At the same time, it really speaks to everybody. And I think I have struggled to find something in the West, because not because of that it doesn't exist, of course, but because we are so familiar with it. Like, we're familiar with the entire corpus. So it's like anything that you pick. Actually, there are many, many such things. We are doing this with the Bible, with Jordan Peterson. We're doing it with Nietzsche. Maybe we'll pick up a couple other things like that. So we'll probably need to take like a couple other things. And I'm hoping to do this for something Indian, like Bhagavad Gita or the Yoga Sutras, or something which also brings in that point of view. But the thing I particularly like about Zarathustra and Nietzsche is that he's an artist. He is an amazing artist. I mean, the way he's able to actually portray, look at these three, with just three simple concepts, how much he's able to communicate. Most philosophers can't do that. They are, it is much more drier, and they have to read, you have to read a lot in order to get that. But that's what it is. So folks, thank you very much. This has been amazing. And I will see you. I'm going to continue doing this every Monday, and we will go from that. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you, Shrikant. This is
Night.
great.
Thank you, Shrikant.
Bye.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Bye.
Thank